Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Chaddock, and I'm the Southwestern Regional Development Manager for the Alzheimer's Association. I will be your monitor today for Adrian's presentation. About 15 minutes at the end of the presentation, all chat questions will be answered. Please use the chat to ask questions. For all questions not answered, please call 1-800-272-3900. We will also repeat this number in the chat. I have the honor to present my friend Adrian Rodriguez this morning. He is the Director of Operations at TenderCare Home Health, Administrator of Crossroads In-Homecare, New Mexico Alzheimer's Association Advisory, Walked-In Alzheimer's Committee member, co-host of Jerry Talks Senior Podcast, and the co-owner of Crosstown Car Show. It is my honor to introduce Adrian Rodriguez. Adrian, take it away.
Appreciate it, Emily, and thanks everyone for attending this year's 16th annual Professional Caregiver Conference. This is an exciting time for all of us in healthcare, am I right? No stress at all this year. Well, I think part of the conversation we're going to have today is going to lean towards dealing with some of the added additional stress of the pandemic, along with dementia and Alzheimer's, more specifically relating to dementia-related behavior, okay? So we got about 30 seconds till we can get started. Let me pull this up for you guys. Like Emily said, if we have any questions, feel free to type it in there. I just added right where the chat feature is at the bottom. I don't know how many of breakout sessions we've had this morning, but there's a chat feature right down here at the bottom. You can add questions there. If you are a bit shy and you don't want to add any questions or ask anything right here, right now, you can always call us at the 1-800 number for the Alzheimer's Association here in New Mexico, and Emily will be posting that here shortly. If you have any other questions or something that you think can participate part of the presentation, I would love to have that time at the end to bring everyone together. I know the attendees here, us all being professionals working in the industry, we will have our own experiences and our own pearls of wisdom. And I think learning from everyone is a fantastic thing. So if you guys want to add those pearls of wisdom at the end, let's go right ahead, okay? Oh, somebody can't hear me. I'm not on mute. Do you want to find out which participant it is?
Yes, so the participant that cannot hear, some people can hear you and some people cannot. So let's see, we can hear you. Tim says we can hear you, and I have one person saying they can't hear you. So I would suggest getting out and then refreshing your page and coming back in.
Okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and get started here because we've got about 33 people already on. If you can't hear us, this is being recorded. For some miracle you decide that that it starts working and you can't hear us, hang on. If not, feel free to check the recording afterwards, okay? And then I'll also add my cell phone number to the end of the discussion period. That way you can call and contact me if you have any questions. Cool? So without further ado, computer sound on. Here we go. So today's discussion, of course, is understanding and responding to dementia-related behavior. This is a heightened discussion because of the pandemic that's currently facing our country. And it's affecting all of us in the professional world when dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's patients in our facilities, in home care, which I do, and home health services. It's affecting us drastically. Social distancing, the lockdowns, the pressure put on facilities nowadays is exacerbating the problem exponentially, right? So we're gonna have a lot more negative dementia-related behavior that is gonna be pressing our patients, our loved ones, and having them just act out, I think, a little more erratically. I've noticed it a lot in home care and home health care, that my dementia clients are just, they're on something else lately. It could be the moon, it could be the pandemic, who knows what it is, but it's been amplified. This whole year is just amplifying everything. So we're going to discuss how we can track, monitor, detect, and respond to these different types of behavioral issues, and then definitely have that time afterwards to talk about it and see what everyone else thinks. So the objective is to identify the common triggers for the behaviors associated with the disease. We're going to explain the process for assessing and identifying and challenging those behaviors. We're also going to list the strategies to address common dementia-related behaviors. This is usually why we're triggered, why our dementia patients are triggered, okay? These 5 steps, or these 5 issues here, are the most common ones that we're seeing working in facilities and in home care. And we'll talk about how we're going to address each one. For example, pain or discomfort, the overstimulation or boredom, fear or frustration, unfamiliar surroundings, and the complicated tasks. In order to understand and address the behavior, we're going to have to follow these 4 steps, okay? We'll start by detecting and connecting, followed by addressing the physical needs first. Then we'll address the emotional needs, and then we'll reassess and plan for the next time. Addressing the physical needs first is going to help us eliminate a lot of the triggers that are affecting our loved ones and our patients and causing these dementia-related behaviors. But we can't count out the added emotional stress that having this disease process happens or causes. We just can't count that out. We have to take an account for that. So when we're looking at our patient, we're going to look at our patient holistically. We're going to address everything, their physical needs and their emotional needs, and then make sure that once all that's done, we can write it down, come back, and then see what's working, what's not working. This is how we're going to detect and connect. What we want to do is we want to join the person in their reality by trying to see the world through their eyes. A lot of us professionals in the facility setting and in the home care setting, we already know, we join them. We join them right where they are in their reality. Okay, we want to see the world through their eyes. If they feel it's 1984, then by golly, it's 1984. It's better to just join them than to be in opposition to them and to argue with them and try to bring them to our year. I know if it were me, I would try to escape out of 2020 as well. So by joining their reality, it helps us better understand what they're going through and what could be causing the triggers. We want to understand the person's reality and context before we intervene them. So we're going to ask the age-old questions: who, what, where, when, how. We want to know all this stuff that took place before, during, and after our loved one or our patient was triggered. And then, of course, at the risk of sounding like a hippie, I say it all the time, we want to approach the person confidently and respectfully because we want to exhibit good energy. Okay, positive energy is extremely important in the dementia and the Alzheimer's world. Promoting that positive energy and projecting that positive energy to the patient to make sure that, you know what, we're here with them. We're going to take care of this. We're going to answer things calmly and with 100% respect. Now, in my humble opinion, this is actually a lot harder to do nowadays than it is in the past. We have to deal with COVID restrictions. We have to deal with angry family members who aren't able to go see their loved ones, where we got a lot more additional pressure. And what we bring to the office that day or to the facility is what our loved ones and our patients are going to pick up on. So if we aren't controlling our own energy and responding in a calm and respectful manner, then any of the steps that we can educate anyone on will not work. I think this is the most important thing that we have to focus on, is when we're going to talk with someone and where we're going to need them to work with us, we definitely augment our energy, make sure it's calm, make sure it's respectful, make sure it's positive, because that is what's going to get you the best outcomes, even when they test you. So of course, we're addressing the physical needs first. When we're dealing with all the chronic diseases that we have and to put people into facilities that they're staying at and that requiring the home health setting or the home care setting, like we're looking at the patient and the loved one holistically. We're addressing all of their needs. We got to understand that they could be on multiple medications. They could be having surgeries. You know, when we start to get towards these latter years of our lives, our health is just declining. And in many cases, when we're dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's, in my personal experience, I see a lot of our clients and patients as actually being quite physically fit before they even need anything. They're pretty physically fit. The only thing that they're losing is their dementia, is their memory and stuff like that. So it's not always super problematic, but for the rest of the population dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's, this is an issue. Checking to see something as simple as hunger or thirst, checking to see if they have a lack of social interaction, and the environmental triggers for discomfort. So all this, hunger or thirst, if they're refusing to eat, if they're on a medication that that is a diuretic that causes them to urinate a lot, and they could be thirsty a lot. Could be the middle of summer environmentally. Could be hot as heck outside and super dry in the air here in southern New Mexico. It's super dry. That could be causing them to be thirsty. Could be causing their skin to be itchy if it's super dry outside and they're not putting lotion on and things like that. More importantly now, more than ever, the lack of social interaction. Our loved ones, they just can't understand the issue that is at hand dealing with the pandemic. They can't quite understand why do we have to be socially distant. Something as simple as a smile goes a long way when keeping that positive energy, keeping that flow, and respect and calmness. Something as simple as a smile is instantly taken away from all of our loved ones because they can't see it through a mask, okay? So how do we get creative? How do we address this lack of social interaction? There's tons of ways that a lot of the best facilities that I work with, one of our great sponsors, Preferred Assisted Living, I've seen them do some amazing things and incorporate games that actually allow the caregivers to wear their masks and still boost the energy and still get the rest of the facility to engage and be social, okay? It also, in my opinion, works with the tone of your voice. You can tell a lot about a person just by the tone of their voice. If you're sharp and you're quick to bark an order, that's not giving the positive energy that you want to get and you want to impart to your patient. What's going to happen is that's going to lead towards the negative path. They're going to start to pick up on your negative energy and the tone of your voice. So every time we come in and we meet them in their room or at their home, we're definitely wanting to project just with our voice alone, our posture, the way we stand, the way we're around them, the way we interact with other residents. Everyone's always watching us. All of that is going to make up for the lack of the social interaction. It's going to make up for the lack of seeing a smile and such things that are causing these physical needs to start to manifest. Like we said, the emotional needs is often understated when we're discussing dementia and Alzheimer's. This disease process, and thankfully, we see this and we're learning from this, but this disease process doesn't just affect us mentally. It affects us insanely emotionally. It's one of the hardest things to have to go through. I do not wish this on any person at all. Wouldn't even wish this on my worst enemy, this dementia. And I'm sure a lot of you would agree. We need to focus on the person's feelings and not the facts, okay? There's no point in challenging them. If they say it's nighttime and you can clearly look outside and it's daytime, there's no point in arguing with them. Those are facts to us, but they in their heart of hearts feel that it's nighttime outside. Okay, fine, it's nighttime. Let's eat dinner. When it's breakfast time or when it's lunchtime, here's your dinner, You have the ability to then change, for example, medication needs if we're addressing their physical needs and they haven't taken their noontime medication, but they're out there saying, well, I don't need to take my evening pills. No, it's lunch, right? Yeah, it's lunch for you. Then we're going to go ahead and take your lunch pills, but you give them their pills. We're working with them. We're coming and joining their reality. We want to use our knowledge of their preferences and provide effective interventions. That just goes to telling you that you really have to maintain constant communication, listening and understanding of our patients, making sure that we know their story, we know who they are, we know what's worked in the past, what they've done in the past. Were they normally socially distant people, and and isolated by themselves, and they just are curmudgeon and don't want to be around anyone? Or were they a social butterfly and always hanging around people? Knowing who they are and getting to their past will also help you provide effective interventions. If we know that they were a social butterfly, then we can automatically off the bat tell ourselves they need more social intervention. They need someone to go in there and just sit there and listen to them for a little bit. Entertain that story for the 100th time in 2 weeks. Entertain that story again, give them the ability to talk and do stuff like that. And like I said, redirecting the energy to a more soothing activity, changing up the things that are going on around them. If they're not participating in a specific event that you guys are having at the facilities, or trying to do a game or an exercise routine, just trying to get everyone to move, and they're not participating, well, then we got to see why. What's happening there? Are they sad? Are they depressed because they can't see their loved ones? Are they just sitting in their fields because they can't remember who they are? They don't really recognize the person in the mirror. They don't recognize the caregiver in front of them. They're in a strange and unusual surrounding. So redirecting energy and trying to change it to something that they do like to do. For example, if they like to read, write, listen to music, don't force them or pigeon them into any specific activity. Work with them, go with the flow. Here we're going to look at Rose. Her mother had Alzheimer's disease, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what she used in her experience in dealing with her mother, and how she can teach us some tips and techniques.
She was part of the family. She'd fold towels, and she'd fold towels all day long some days. Just, put them back in the basket, and then she'd give them to her, here's some more towels. And it may sound like it's cruel, but look, it kept her busy. It kept her movements going. It kept her, just kept her occupied, and it made her feel wanted and that she was contributing. We created a routine for her that worked for her around her agitation and, her sleep patterns. So every day she was in the same routine for the most part. And every day she did something. She was always in the kitchen every day helping do something. Sometimes she'd rinse dishes, but she was always near the kitchen sink because she spent most of her life in front of the kitchen sink. Now she was just doing it in different ways. And going for a walk, going out in the car for a drive, walking around the yard, watering plants. Those are all things that she did, and we just had her continue doing them. She was part of the family.
So here Rose is talking about being able to incorporate her mother's past and what she was comfortable doing, almost the muscle memory of her life, and bring it back and join it to the family setting. I think where Rose was dealing with her mother at home. Gosh, I would love for her to sit in my kitchen and help me cook. I could imagine what Rose's mom could pull up. But yeah, she was always redirecting to an activity that was suited towards mom. So this example was more geared towards a home care setting, a home health setting, where our caregivers are able to take care of them in the home. It's definitely different, as you guys would know, for the facility setting, because we can't just get in a car and go for a drive just to get out. But we can have them help with day-to-day routines and things like that. She mentioned folding towels, things like that. I've heard from several of my partners here in Las Cruces that trick actually works like a champ. It really, really works to get them to sit down and fold towels with you, you know, and do laundry and put clothes away. Even if you have to go get a fresh, you know, basket of clothes or towels every time, and, you know, just bring them back to doing some type of activity that helps them feel like they're useful. The whole time that we're addressing and understanding the behavior, we need to be reassessing and planning for the next time. In our line of work, documentation is key. It's extremely essential. Being able to go back, detect and connect and join the person's reality, find out what went well, what didn't, and to make those adjustments. You can't do that unless you're writing stuff down. When we're dealing with 15, 16, 20, who knows how many residents or patients, we're dealing with quite a few people who all need different personalized individual care. Okay, so when we're working with them, it's best to take notes, write these things down. Today we turned down the lights. We made it really comfortable at around 2 p.m. because we noticed that's when, you know, Miss Rose's mom is more agitated. So we turned down the lights, dimmed them down, and gave her something simple to eat, something soft. She really enjoyed the texture of the pudding with the tapioca pearls. Okay, fantastic. Those are things that you can write down and then come back next time and try it again and see if it works again. Definitely write down what doesn't work. Okay, you know, putting the music on. If she cannot stand Frank Sinatra, well, that's a trigger. For some reason, Frank Sinatra's setting off a trigger, so nobody puts on Frank Sinatra in the house while we're around, right? So little things like that, writing down these special notes, that allows you to make plans for the next time you go in to go visit that client or go see that patient. You can always say, okay, my shift starts tomorrow at noon, around 2 o'clock. Rose's mom likes for me to turn down the lights and, you know, and get her some of that tapioca pudding that she really likes a lot. That's always helped. If it doesn't help, write down what went wrong and make sure that you just make adjustments accordingly. So these 4 steps can be applied to any one of the behaviors that we see that manifest with dementia and Alzheimer's. Just to recap, we're going to detect and connect. Okay, join them. Notice that something's going on, join them in their reality. Okay, don't bring them to our reality. Keep them far away from 2020 as much as possible. Hopefully 2021 is a little better. We can bring them in there. But no, join them in their reality and entertain them. Okay, work with them as opposed to having them work with you. If you need them to work with you and you're trying to force that, you obviously know that's going to be a bad time. That's going to be a bad time. We really want to work with them as opposed to them being forced to work with us. Okay. I see this happen a lot in rookie caregivers that are trying to redirect to get them to do a task, and they're very demanding about it, and they're very upfront about it. And now that you have to finesse. I think that's a word that I use with my caregivers when I do Alzheimer's training, is you have to finesse everything with them. You have to be super smooth, not sounding like a car salesman, but at some point you kind of have to sell it every time. You have to sell yourself, you have to sell the activity, you have to sell everything to these patients, these loved ones, every time we have to do it. And you know what? It's exhausting. Being a caregiver and what we do in our line of work, they can't pay us enough to do what we do. We do this because we love other people, because we're compassionate human beings and we want to do good for someone else. We have learned and have experience with our own personal lives, and we're trying to pay it forward. We want to take care of people. So don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of that human part of you that is compassionate and caring, and you know, especially when you feel you're about to burst because they are just combative and not working with you. Remind yourself who you are and why you're doing this. Okay, so connect with them on an emotional level, bring that energy. Definitely address any physical needs, you know, medication, hunger, thirst, ambient temperature, pain. Gosh, I'm almost 40 years old, and the knee pain I have now, by the time I'm, 60, 70, 80, it's going to be amplified. And I know if I have dementia or Alzheimer's, I'm not going to know where that pain comes from. I tell you right now, the pain in my knee comes from a lifetime of having fun and being an outdoorsy guy and playing sports. I appreciate the pain in my knee now. It's a reminder that I've lived a good life. When I am older, and if unfortunately I end up developing any symptoms of this disease process, I may not know where that's coming from, and that will make me angry, and that will make me want to act out. The constant pain is something that we need to always address. If there's rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, prior surgeries, post-surgical care, things like that. There's always things that we can address first before we look at the emotional needs as well. Okay, after we address the emotional needs, reassess, write things down, take down notes, and plan for the next time that you come in. Okay, plan ahead to project that you are going to have a good day at your facility, and you guys are all going to do your best to take care of these wonderful people who deserve our love and support. So these are the type of behaviors that are most commonly noticed with dementia and Alzheimer's. Of course, the anxiety or agitation, that's a restlessness, that's pacing back and forth, a constant distress or over-reliance on caregivers, them just needing you for every little tiny thing. One of the things with dementia that we notice, especially in a home care setting, and I think even more so in a facility setting, is the over-dependence on caregivers. At some point, a lot of our people just give up. They just give up. They don't want to do anything. They've accepted their lack of independence, and they're just going with the flow and waiting out their days. That's all they're doing. That's extremely depressing to me. I'm sure a lot of you share that same depression when you hear about that kind of personality. So it's incumbent upon us to address that, use the steps we just discussed, and see if you can bring them out of that. That's why offering them tasks that are suited to them, that are suited to their past experiences, go ahead and have some great tasks set aside. I had a lovely gentleman that I started down in the valley in Anthony, New Mexico. And when I was being interviewed by the daughter, she had asked me, would the caregiver for your home care agency be willing to just shell pecans? They had pecan trees all around their home. And I was like, you know what, that doesn't seem unreasonable at all. I know we're a home caregiving agency. We do home care, personal care, and transportation, but why not? So I asked my caregiver if that's something she would be interested in. She lit up. She tells me, oh my God, Adrian, when I was a little girl, I used to shell pecans with my grandfather. So of course I would love to. We had this gentleman to his very last days. We saw him all the way through hospice, and it's emotional. And when I spoke to the caregiver and I counseled her afterwards, just to discuss, what was going on after he had passed, she could not stop crying tears of joy for what she was able to bring to him, as opposed, to his death. So finding little things that we can do to have them keep their independence and keep doing things that they like to do is extremely impactful for the people that we love and we're taking care of. So I'm sorry, this one goes along with the reader. We'll go ahead and skip this. We'll talk about confusion and suspicion. So one of the major symptoms of this is the confusion and suspicion, okay? Not recognizing familiar faces, the setting where they're at, the place or things, or accusing others of theft and infidelity, etc. This we hear a lot, am I right? Especially the theft, we're gonna hear that a lot. I do get a lot of the comments of infidelity. Like we're saying, we're coming to their reality. We have to understand that, no, their husband's been passed for about 25 years now. He's not in the next room cheating on you, but we don't tell them that. right? In our brains, we have to disconnect that that's going on. We have to disconnect and say, you know what, in her reality, he's still alive and he's doing this stuff. And of course, that would make us feel terrible as well. Okay, so if you're talking to some of your friends, you guys are having wine post, pre-COVID, we're having wine all together and discussing our marital things, of course, we want to get involved. We want to talk with them. We want to help them out. So you kind of join them in that same mentality, like, for reals, is this really happening? Oh my gosh. Well, you know what I always do when I find out that my friends are, having these kind of issues, is I always eat an ice cream, or I always eat ice cream and talk about it, cry about it. Let's get it out of our system. And then we move on, being able to identify, work with them, join their reality, and come back and then redirect to a different activity that should hopefully take their mind off of things is one of the best ways to get them to stop those feelings of suspicion. Okay. Now, granted, everything we're going to talk about in this program is not going to be for every single person. That is why we reassess and we write things down. We say what did work, what didn't work. Because if I said, girl, I feel you, my best friend's wife cheated on him, what we did is we went and we got some burgers from Blake's, and we talked about it. So I'm going to order some burgers from Blake's. We'll talk about it. Okay, that worked. It may not work the next time. So we write down what works the next time. It's a constant evolution of learning just to be able to keep up with what our people are dealing with, So yeah, it is tough to be in this world, to be in this dementia world. So we have to work with them. The aggressive behavior, aggression, it may be verbal or physical, and hopefully it doesn't get to that physical stage. But I think once we start getting to the facility setting and the latter stages of dementia and Alzheimer's, we tend to see a lot more of that physical. The verbal is nonstop. I have clients whose family members say, I have never heard these words come out of my church-going mother ever in my life, but yet now they're coming out. These are things when we're counseling our loved ones and working with our caregivers, we have to warn them that this is going to happen. I often tell my folks that my dementia Alzheimer's patients, usually when they act out aggressively, verbally or physically, that's because they like them the most. It's a reverse, it's a switch. So that's because they like them the most. And they asked me, well, why is that? I'm like, well, if you think about dementia and Alzheimer's like a parasite sucking off, the brain and just making sure that it wants to live, and the only thing that can take it off is you, well, that parasite is going to control mom and dad and make them act out against you, push you away farther, right? It doesn't want you. The only way you're going to get rid of that parasite that's living on top of their head is with love and understanding and compassion. I explained that to them, and it flips the switch for them, and they're able to kind of, okay, the verbal, physical abuse, that's not me, that's not mom, that's not dad, that's the parasite, that's dementia and Alzheimer's. Let's get back here. Let's look past it. And it's one of the hardest things that they're ever going to have to do. It's one of the hardest things that our caregivers in the facilities have to deal with, is having to disconnect the dementia aggression to the person. Because they could be sweet as pie 15 minutes ago and the most ornery sailor that you've ever met in the next 15 minutes. And you just have to work with that and deal with that switching. Here we got Rose again, talking a little bit more about her mother.
On the tough days, my husband and I would switch off. And my mom had forgotten all her English and had gone back to speaking only Greek. So she just spoke Greek, and my husband doesn't speak Greek, so it was perfect. So when she was agitated and she was cussing and yelling and saying all kinds of obnoxious things, my husband couldn't understand. So to him, it didn't matter. So when she was in that mode, we'd switch off, and he'd take her for a drive. She'd stare out the window, eat fries, and she'd be fine. And it would give me a break to really decompress from some of the stuff she was saying, that I know she was just saying them, their words, but I'm a human being as well, and I was taking them personally.
Turn that off. So Rose did the right thing, correct? She addressed the issue. She learned eventually to just not take it personally, and she gave herself time away from it by switching off with her husband to just take different times to heal herself. We often forget this, and when I teach a course that we do for our boot camp here, the Caring for the Caregiver, us as facility workers and home care workers, we are caregivers. We get beat up just as much, if not more, than the family caregivers. And what I teach the family caregivers is you got to take time for yourself. We have to heal ourselves. That all goes back to talking about the energy, right? We have to correct our energy. Remember, I'm not a hippie, but we have to correct our energy to be able to feed that to the loved ones that we're taking care of in our facilities. So when she's taking that time off and letting her husband take care of mom for a little bit, she's able to redirect and focus her energy back to herself, fill her heart back up with love, and then go back home and give it to mom again. Okay, so when we're talking about the aggression, we're usually talking about aggressive behaviors associated with dementia that are upsetting, but not necessarily dangerous. Okay, occasionally the person is a danger to themselves and others, and safety measures are necessary, but we got to remember we got to de-escalate the situation. Okay, if it's problematic, of course, we speak to the doctor's physician and we ask about medical interventions such as medications. Okay, and if worse comes to worse, we call 911 when help is urgently needed. Repetition is another part of the disease process that affects our dementia and Alzheimer's patients. They're going to say something over and over again, repeating words, questions, or behaviors. We get to the baseline of what this is towards the latter stages, of the Alzheimer's process, and being a caregiver, this can get really, I hate to say it, annoying. It just gets to be too much. It builds up on us. But in my honest opinion, I think that this is the least worrisome, the least annoying behavior of them all. We can tune it out. We can tune it out. But don't forget to look into the words they're repeating, the questions or the behaviors. Sometimes they could have meaning behind it, so the more we ignore it, a lot of times the worse it gets. So if we're able to decode and find out what it is that they're acting out or saying, what helps them stop? There's a lot of ways where we can just figure out, like, is it something that they were saying they were thirsty? Were they hungry this entire time, talking about a certain hot dog, or telling a story for the 15th time this morning about the time they had coffee with James Dean? They just going crazy talking about all these different things, and you're just oh, that's great, Rose's mom, you're doing fantastic, or would a cup of coffee right then and there calmed her down and said, you know what, okay, you tell me the story one more time, here's a cup of coffee? How did that change the dynamic? Well, we got to write this stuff down. We got to be able to go back to our little notebook and say, okay, well, that worked yesterday, let's try it again today. Okay, and we keep working it, keeps trying until it doesn't work anymore. We got to find out what's new. It's the constant evolution of caring for dementia and Alzheimer's. Here, Dr. Fazio is the Director of Special Projects for the National Office of the Alzheimer's Association. He's going to tell a little bit about his experience dealing with dementia-related behaviors.
Repetition is really one of the most common and also frustrating behaviors for caregivers. It's important to really just take a minute, take a breath, and really think about how you could help that person with the answer that they're looking for. It really makes no sense to sort of bump heads with them and try to correct them or try to tell them to stop asking it, because they really can't remember that they just asked you that a minute ago. So thinking about how you could provide an answer that's reassuring, even though you might be doing it over and over and over again.
Very good point. So we go back again, this talks about Anne's situation. We didn't go through that video, but I wanted to just remind everyone that we need to continue to detect and connect with them, get there with them, join their reality, address the physical needs first, or the really cold, or are they thirsty? You know, and let's address the physical needs, then we address the emotional needs. Do they talk about swimming over and over again because they feel like they're drowning? You know, and address the emotional needs, write it down, reassess it, plan for the next time you're going to come in and take care of them. Wandering is one of the other very dangerous portions of our job that we have to deal with. So 60% of the people with dementia will wander, and it can happen at any of the stages of learning. By the time they're in the repetitive motion version of dementia, I don't think they're, you know, moving as much. In my opinion, this is happens actually kind of in the beginning and mid stages of dementia and Alzheimer's. And it's exhausting. It is, to be able to keep an eye out for them and make sure they're not trying to escape through a window if they're still spry and moving around like that, or sneaking past the front door. But you know, having good luck, having correct staffing ratios helps with all this, because you got more eyes and more people working. But one thing we have to train our caregivers is to constantly always be on the lookout for escape points in the facilities or escape points in the house. What I would tell my family caregivers, look for all the places that they can get out, and, you know, put the little bell to let you know that, hey, this one opened, back door open, let's go see who it is. Is it my kid or is it mom? You know, that's one of the things that we could address the wandering with. Here we'll see, I believe, one more video for Beverly.
Later in this journey, and I call it a journey, he decided that he was going home to his wife. And one New Year's Eve, he looked out the window and there was a house down the street that had all the lights on, and he decided that that was his house. And it must have been, I'd say, at least 2 below zero. And he was going to leave. I had a double lock on the door, but I had left the key in, and he decided he was leaving. And I said, well, Amos, I'm your wife. No, you're not. My wife is waiting for me. And he would laugh when I said that I was his wife. So he got up and I said, Amos, I'm going to call the police if you walk out the door. And Amos, in his usual manner, said, you do what you have to do. And he walked out the door. Well, he walked out in his house shoes 2 blocks down the street, and I got in the car and drove around. It just so happened that it was a neighbor's mother, and she knew what was happening, and she talked to him, and we got him back in the car and drove him home.
I truly think a lot of people have sat with this. I think all of us in this webinar have sat through these stories. When we're interviewing new clients, new patients, everyone tells us about the different stories. We've heard quite a bit, right? And in this situation, the wandering got to the point where, you know, it was a danger to them. That's why we have silver alerts and stuff like that. But in the end, they could address some of the emotional needs behind the reason for the wandering. They could ask some more questions. Why is it, are we going into this house? Why, you know, and try to be a little bit of a detective, a CIA or a CSI Alzheimer's expert, and just try to get to the bottom of it, I think is what they could have done to work on reducing the frequency of the wandering. So we're getting down to the end of the conversation, guys. I really appreciate everyone who's come out and attended the webinar. I hope I was able to impart just a little bit of education for you guys. I didn't want to make it completely all about COVID, because I'm a little bit COVIDed out, and I'm sure you guys are as well. I hope the conversation gave you something new, maybe some small tips and tricks that would make you just that much better of an Alzheimer's caregiver. That's my goal in life. That's the goal of the Alzheimer's Association. That's why we work together hand in hand, and why I'm a huge contributor to their programs, is because I want to make sure that everybody is extremely well trained to handle these diseases. I had it in my personal life. My grandmother was my best friend for my longest time. I grew up with my grandmother. I lived with my grandmother. I moved back from Dallas, Texas, all the way back to her home so I can stay with her when she was needing help. So it's an important thing to me, as I'm sure it's an important thing to you guys. And if there's anything that we can do for you, these are the contacts on how we can be of support to yourselves as well as myself and my experience. If there's something I can help with in the home care setting, in the home health setting, by all means, give me a call. Let me know what I can do to help. I'm gonna leave a few minutes here towards the end for questions. Normally we do that at the breakout session where you have like the coffee and the donuts and stuff over there. We're virtual, so we're not doing that this year. But if you guys want to share a virtual coffee with me, cheers. Please, if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer them here for the last few minutes. If not, I wish you guys a blessed day. And thank you for all you do in taking care of our loved ones and our patients and making sure that their quality of life is top notch. You guys are the true heroes of my world. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, for your presentation. Valerie, I see your comment has just came in. We will go ahead and email you contact information after the session is over. If anybody has any questions, we'll be on a few minutes longer to answer any of those questions and anything that we can help you with. As always, we do have our 1-800 number that if you feel not comfortable asking questions in the chat box, you can call 1-800-272-3900. Once again, that number is 1-800-272-3900.
Hey, Emily, my computer's freezing up here. I wanted to put my cell number in the chat for if anyone had any questions and they wanted to call me directly. Would you be kind enough to put that in there, just my name and my cell?
Of course, absolutely.
Thank you. You do know my cell number, right?
I do.
Okay. You have it memorized, I'm sure.
Almost.
It's one of the very few 915 numbers in your phone, I bet. We do have a couple minutes left. I don't know how many people because my screen is acting a little funky. But let me see if I can play this video. And if you guys, want to take a look, this is Sandra. Her mother's in the late stages of Alzheimer's. We can just end it with that if anybody's still sitting around before they take a break before their next breakout. But I'll go ahead and let this one play.
Everyone's situation, I'm sure, is different. My mom was a shaker and a mover. She would do whatever needed to be done. She loved to cook. She can't cook anymore. She loved to keep her house clean. She can't do that anymore. And it's tough. I don't have all the answers. When she's sitting there and my dad's cooking, I don't always know what to do. I have to learn to be comfortable with that. And if I may say, that's a big part of this. Learning to be really comfortable with your own limitations, learning to be comfortable with the fact that you don't know the answer, learning to be comfortable with you're in a situation and you think you need to give her something, but you don't know what it is. You're taking her around the flowers and she's not responding. You're taking her for a walk and she's really not there with you. I don't always know what to do, but I try.
Always trying. That's beautiful. You just gotta roll with the punches when you're dealing with this disease process. Somebody raised their hand. I don't know if that's a question or not. My computer's wigging out.
Yes. So they're just interested in respite reimbursement program. So
Okay.
I am taking notes as we go, and I will get it all sent over to Denise to release those packets to you.
Ooh, you rock.
If anybody doesn't have any more questions, you guys are free to go to attend your next session. Once again, that 1-800 number is 272-3900. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your sessions. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, guys. Be safe and wear your mask. Let's take care of these loved ones.